Christian Horner returns to Red Bull. The team's announcement after a dismal Belgian GP has rocked the paddock. Want the full story on his role in Hungary and his new salary? Watch until the end. You're not going to believe this. Subscribe only if you want to stay updated with the latest breaking news about F1 races. In the debris of a dismal and self-inflicted collapse at Spa-Francorchamps, Red Bull Racing found itself suffocating under its own reputation. The veneer of invincibility, once impenetrable, now cracked and peeled with every misstep on track. The performance was not merely underwhelming, it was an indictment. Max Verstappen, often untouchable, appeared scattered and reactive, delivering a race laced with errors, misjudgments, and visible irritation over strategic indecision. Yuki Tsunoda's outing bordered on shambolic, his radio communications erratic, his execution disjointed, his pace a ghost of the promises once attached to his name. What was once domination had now curdled into dysfunction. Within hours, the emotional damage bled into operations. The silence in the motorhome was not reflective, it was paralyzed. Department heads avoided one another. Pit crew members retreated early. Technical leads shifted blame behind guarded language. The loss of control wasn't theoretical, it was everywhere. There was no clear direction, no unified voice, no presence anchoring the structure. The absence of leadership had metastasized into collapse. And in that vacuum, the one figure whose name had become both forbidden and inevitable was contacted. Not through press releases or boardroom consensus. Not through official channels or scripted courtesies. It was a direct, unfiltered intervention. Helmut Marko, aware that the machinery was unraveling beyond repair, bypassed the formalities. No middlemen. No legal teams. A secure, off-grid conversation was initiated. The subject was simple and non-negotiable: return. Christian Horner had been banished by scandal, exiled under pressure, stripped of visibility and cut from the organization's narrative like a former ruler erased from the tapestries of history. Yet even buried, his absence lingered. His systems remained. His fingerprints never truly faded. And now, with the team flailing in real time, the same organization that removed him quietly conceded that his absence had birthed a power vacuum too vast to ignore. Subscribe only if you want to stay updated with the latest breaking news about F1 races. The call didn't include contrition. No apologies were offered. The request was made with the weight of desperation and the stench of failure. Red Bull's internal ecosystem, once a symbol of precision and unity, had become fragmented and paranoid. Performance reviews had turned into blame sessions. Driver relations had eroded into cold professionalism. The race team operated like a body without a central nervous system. Horner didn't ask for guarantees. He didn't hesitate. He accepted before the terms were even finalized. He understood immediately that what was needed was not an orchestrated return, but a calculated salvage mission. He didn't request compensation increases. In fact, the financial terms were slashed dramatically, with performance bonuses dissolved, executive perks eliminated, and access privileges curtailed. His return wasn't a victory lap, it was damage containment. Within a single cycle, changes began without permission. Horner issued internal audits, bypassing department heads. Access restrictions were lifted by direct command. Telemetry flow, race simulation oversight, data handling procedures, all placed under scrutiny. He eliminated redundancies. He shut down non-essential testing programs. The engineering room was restructured. Decision-making protocols were rewritten. Race strategy simulations were redirected through a smaller, tighter control group. The command hierarchy, once diluted by layers of indecision, was re-established with unflinching clarity. Verstappen, long encumbered by increasing frustrations and misaligned priorities, immediately requested a one-on-one. The meeting was private and unrecorded. What emerged was a sharper version of the driver, re-engaged, streamlined, purposeful. He no longer appeared burdened by invisible chains of internal politics. He looked recalibrated. The change in demeanor radiated through his pit crew, his engineers, even his press appearances. It wasn't just the return of a principle, it was the return of authority. Tsunoda, by contrast, found no such reassurance. Every telemetry report, every lap comparison, every team radio exchange is now being dissected. The once protected driver is being evaluated without sentiment. His margin for error has shrunk to zero. Replacement discussions have intensified. A quiet but deliberate consideration is underway involving other names, drivers who can bring not just compliance, but execution. There are no warnings being issued. Only silence. And in Formula One, silence is fatal. The press received no formal briefing. The media saw no orchestrated rollout. Horner's presence was not confirmed through the usual channels. But internally, his authority returned like gravity. Senior engineers stopped deferring decisions. Race strategists no longer argued over precedents. The atmosphere hardened. Discipline replaced improvisation. Accountability replaced ambiguity. The other teams took note. Mercedes, once content to observe Red Bull's implosion from afar, has begun recalibrating their internal assumptions. McLaren, currently riding a wave of momentum, acknowledged privately that the tone has shifted. Ferrari, still grappling with its own chaos, took notice not of results, but of posture. The pit wall no longer looked scattered, it looked focused. No cheers. No celebration. Just execution. Subscribe only if you want to stay updated with the latest breaking news about F1 races. Horner's return was not a signal of nostalgia. It wasn't a move of desperation dressed as revival. It was a reinstatement of the one force within Red Bull that never relied on consensus. He doesn't motivate through sentiment. He commands through control. Loyalty is not expected, it's demanded. Compliance is not suggested, it's required. Mistakes aren't corrected, they're eliminated. There's no illusion of redemption in his eyes. He isn't interested in legacy anymore. What's at stake isn't image, it's structure. The team will either evolve into the machine it once was or be gutted and rebuilt, piece by piece, until the weaknesses are surgically removed. No celebration awaits. No podium smiles. Only pressure, precision, and the ruthless standard of performance he's imposed since the beginning. And now that he's back, the fear isn't that Red Bull has returned, it's that the part of Red Bull that never cared about forgiveness just reclaimed the throne. When do I begin? There was no pause, no calculation, no trace of hesitation in his tone. It wasn't a request, it was a declaration. A cold, immediate acceptance of terms that would terrify most. Not because the offer was generous, but because the expectations were suffocating. What lay ahead wasn't opportunity, it was obligation. One that would demand absolute control, surgical decisions, and a willingness to burn everything that didn't meet the new standard. And that's exactly what Christian Horner signed up for. The executives didn't disguise their message. The brand stood above everything. Above relationships, above reputations, above any individual's agenda or influence. Red Bull, an empire built on image and dominance, wasn't looking for redemption. They were hunting eradication, of weakness, of distraction, of anything that might taint their authority. The warning was explicit. The next public misstep, the slightest personal controversy, the faintest echo of scandal, he would be cut loose. No negotiations. No internal review. No parachute. Just erasure. And he didn't blink. He landed with no ceremony, no welcome. He wasn't returning. He was reclaiming. No smile, no nostalgia, just movement. He stepped into the headquarters like a man returning to a crime scene, one he intended to rebuild from the ashes. He didn't speak to the press. He didn't shake hands. He didn't offer reassurance. Within hours, he had already begun dismantling the operational structure with a precision that felt more like punishment than reform. The first targets were performance lapses that others had allowed to fester. Pit execution failures. Strategic paralysis. Inconsistencies that were normalized through repetition. Horner reviewed everything, not on paper, not through second-hand reports, but through raw, unfiltered data. Slow-motion footage of every wheel change, telemetry logs of reaction times, micro-delays in decision chains. He watched. He analyzed. Then he acted. Dozens of crew members were removed. Some were veterans. Some had years of loyalty. None were spared. He didn't speak in meetings. He issued finality. There were no second chances, no appeals. They were labeled as obsolete and discarded. The cost of failure had increased. Permanence was gone. Efficiency wasn't encouraged, it was demanded. In their place came replacements forged under pressure. Not new hires, assets reassigned from covert programs, internal war rooms, developmental silos. These weren't just technically sound. They were unflinching, unemotional, trained for failure-free environments where a single error meant disqualification. They came in without names, without introductions, and without history. Their presence changed the energy in every room. Then came the systems overhaul. He deconstructed the entire communication structure. Every frequency, every digital relay, every point of contact between the garage and the driver cockpit was tested, purged, and rebuilt. Latency metrics were slashed. Noise filtering was applied. Signal breaches were identified. All redundancies were recalibrated, and every command now had to pass through a newly enforced chain that led straight back to him. Data wasn't just monitored. It was weaponized. He cross-examined historical weather models, recalibrated predictive software to account for real-time atmospheric shifts, and imposed new restrictions on strategy decisions under live conditions. Tactical authority was no longer shared, it was centralized. The simulation teams were instructed to abandon prior models and rebuild scenarios from scratch. Every pit stop, every tire call, every car release now operated under a pressure-tested formula. Precision replaced instinct. Speed replaced tradition. Across the facility, discomfort settled in. Conversations vanished. The usual rhythms of camaraderie evaporated. People didn't move casually. They kept their heads down, locked onto screens, chasing performance deltas and variable models. Not because they were motivated, but because they were scared. The margin for survival had narrowed. Horner made no effort to reassure them. He didn't want comfort. He wanted compliance. Teams that had grown used to departmental independence were broken down. Reporting lines were rewritten. Familiar workflows were dissolved. Every process had to be revalidated under new thresholds. Legacy meant nothing if it couldn't justify itself with results. Respected voices in the garage suddenly found themselves sidelined. Internal legends who once had autonomy were stripped of influence. No one was indispensable. Every action was judged by its consequence, not its context. Trust, once built over seasons, was now replaced with surveillance. Performance wasn't rewarded, it was expected. Anything below that was exposure. Outside the team, murmurs turned into worry. Rivals noticed the silence. They noticed the absences. They noticed the increasing discipline. Analysts speculated that Horner was tearing the structure apart out of desperation. They were wrong. He wasn't salvaging a sinking ship. He was reforging it into something far more dangerous. The inefficiencies, the casual errors, the softness, it was all being carved out. And what remained wasn't flexible. It was unbreakable. What was once a team had become something else, more controlled, less human, more capable. And beneath it all was Horner, no longer a principal, but a tactician, an executioner, and a builder of something colder, sharper, and far more terrifying than what came before. He didn't come back to rebuild trust. He came back to eliminate the need for it. He didn't step back into the Red Bull compound to blend in. He reappeared like a storm front, dark, volatile, and completely uninterested in pleasantries. Christian Horner didn't ask how things had been. He didn't shake hands or offer soft reassurance. He marched in with the unshakable posture of someone who'd seen enough. He wasn't there to manage the chaos. He was there to dismantle the rot with precision. From the second he arrived, the air changed. Tension rippled down hallways. Conversations hushed. People instinctively checked their work twice before speaking. His presence was not just an interruption, it was a warning. Complacency had been tolerated, and now it was going to be crushed. He didn't ask for reports, he demanded accountability. He didn't listen to excuses, he erased them. Anyone who had floated through the previous weeks under the illusion that stability would protect them had a rude awakening. Everything was under the microscope. No one was spared. He didn't ease into meetings or entertain soft dialogue. He asked questions designed to expose weakness. He identified flaws in logistics flow, communications breakdowns, inefficiencies in race prep, strategic blind spots. He pushed senior staff beyond their limits and told them plainly, legacy doesn't matter if performance decays. Sentiment doesn't buy results. Loyalty means nothing without contribution. The overhaul wasn't limited to systems. It drilled into every unseen detail. Algorithms were deployed to model tire conditioning in microclimates. Hydration routines were rewritten using metabolic performance data. Pit crew schedules were reconstructed around neuromuscular recovery patterns, not seniority or tradition. Recovery zones were relocated. Workloads were redistributed. Nothing was sacred. No detail was too small to dissect and restructure. If it could affect performance, even 1/10, it was revised. Department heads now submit real-time impact logs every 12 hours. Team leads undergo continuous scrutiny. Optimization isn't a goal anymore, it's a requirement. One misstep and you're flagged. Fall behind, and you're forgotten. Those who once moved confidently now walk quickly, eyes down, always adjusting, always recalculating. The mood isn't tense, it's urgent. He didn't wait for a scheduled team meeting. He gathered the senior core within hours. No warm welcome. No motivational speech. Just a directive delivered without emotion. This is no longer a race team. It's a machine. If you're not sharp enough to keep up, step aside before you're replaced. And while the dust hadn't even settled from that confrontation, he vanished into the night. Unannounced. Purposeful. He flew without publicity to meet Max Verstappen and Jos in private. The location was undisclosed. The intention was unmistakable. The atmosphere was loaded. There was no time for politics or persuasion. This wasn't a conversation, it was a briefing. Verstappen listened like a man who'd already drawn his own conclusions. Horner didn't offer reassurance. He explained strategy, pointed out where authority had collapsed, detailed where weakness had crept in and how it would be purged. Max, according to one source, barely blinked. His response was blunt: do whatever it takes. But if we're not winning, then none of this matters. The message landed. The alliance was reaffirmed, not with celebration, but with cold pragmatism. The drive for supremacy left no space for softness. Back at base, the transformation accelerated. A newly secured operations floor was activated, with biometric monitoring, behavioral analytics, and machine-driven decision systems built to eliminate indecision. Artificial intelligence now informs race planning, engineering calibration, even internal communication frequency. If a mechanic responds slowly to a directive, it's logged. If an engineer hesitates with feedback, it's noted. If a strategist misjudges a variable, it's dissected and used as a learning point for every other department. Nothing slips by. Every input is recorded, analyzed, weaponized. Rival outfits are already reacting. Information is leaking. Red Bull's level of internal restructuring has caught even the most seasoned competitors off guard. Engineers from rival programs are whispering that Red Bull is operating like a military think tank, not a racing operation. Ferrari is reportedly investigating whether similar biometric tracking can be implemented. Mercedes is quietly increasing spending in their race strategy simulations. Aston Martin has requested an internal audit to examine time efficiency discrepancies compared to Red Bull's new benchmarks. But Red Bull doesn't care who's watching. They're not trying to set trends. They're trying to leave everyone behind. Permanently. Internally, some staff are showing signs of exhaustion. Burnout risk is rising. But no one has left. Why? Because they all feel it. They know they're standing at the edge of something historic. Horner isn't trying to steer the ship. He's overhauling the engine while it's moving at full speed. Anyone who survives this storm will emerge hardened, sharpened, unstoppable. He hasn't spoken to the press. There are no public updates. No friendly interviews. He's communicating through action, not words. His silence is louder than anything his competitors could say. The fear is real. Not just of what Red Bull is doing now, but of what they're about to become. Because this isn't a revival. It's a cold-blooded reconstruction. Red Bull isn't trying to bounce back. They're aiming to erase the gap between competition and domination. Horner isn't building a team. He's forging an unstoppable machine. And every move he makes now comes with a message. You're either part of the solution, or you're already obsolete. He's not adjusting. He's executing a silent purge, a complete dismantling of what he now sees as a compromised structure riddled with hesitation, complacency, and soft thinking. The atmosphere is no longer tense, it's surgical. Strategic meetings have morphed into targeted operations, each more intense than the last, stripping away layers of protocol, hierarchy, and ego until only efficiency remains. These aren't discussions. They're inquiries. Nobody leaves without answering why something failed. Everyone is being held under the same merciless scrutiny, from senior performance engineers down to junior data analysts. No exception. No protection. Every department is being interrogated, their processes torn apart. Not gently. Not privately. Failures from Austria, Hungary, and Silverstone are replayed with military precision, with timestamps and telemetry readouts projected across cold rooms filled with silence. The tone is clinical, emotionless, final. When systems break down, the reaction is no longer repair, it's replacement. The focus is eradication. In Horner's eyes, tolerance is now equivalent to sabotage. He's inserted a new presence between the command floor and the track, one with unfiltered access to both strategy nodes and race day decision-makers. It's not a manager. It's a silent executor. No delays, no bureaucratic hesitation, no waiting for consensus. If a call needs to be made, it's made. If feedback arrives too late, the source is discarded. The individual holds no title but has direct lines to every key voice. Their identity is unknown to most of the paddock. That's intentional. This is not delegation. It's enforcement. He's dissolved the existing public relations structure. What used to be a loosely managed collection of media reps and social staff has been replaced by a calculated messaging apparatus, one designed not to communicate but to manipulate. Every word, every clip, every image now passes through psychological filtration. Verstappen's angry broadcasts? No longer raw moments, they're security risks. Tsunoda's emotional spirals? Now considered systemic failures in discipline. What gets published is no longer spontaneous, it's scripted. And if a driver steps out of line, the consequences are immediate and internal. A new psychological operations team is embedded within communications. Their mission isn't to polish, it's to predict. They monitor fan behavior, journalist patterns, media language shifts. If sentiment turns hostile, they deploy counter-narratives. If confusion emerges, they flood channels with noise. The goal is control, not of the race car, but of the collective perception of Red Bull's authority. Horner isn't trying to be liked. He's trying to be untouchable. The recruitment machine hasn't slowed, it's accelerated, but behind closed doors. A strategist with a deep understanding of Mercedes' internal logic is being groomed for integration. Not a suggestion. A plan. One crafted to weaponize every flaw in Brackley's methodology. Someone who's seen Toto Wolff's operation from the inside. Someone who knows where things bend under pressure. The negotiations are private, discreet, off-book. Not even the Red Bull staffers involved in logistics are aware of the full scope. This isn't a hire. It's a silent acquisition designed to destabilize a rival from within. Tsunoda's future no longer rests in performance alone. It's now a question of compliance, predictability, trust. His flashes of speed are noted, but so are the lapses in control, the unpredictable behavior on comms, the loss of focus in pressure scenarios. He is no longer viewed as an asset with potential. He's a destabilizer in a system being re-engineered for total predictability. His emotional peaks have become strategic liabilities. The analytics don't lie. He's the weakest node. Internal documents now track behavioral volatility alongside sector times. His radio patterns are logged and cross-referenced with execution failures. Situational awareness is measured against psychological reliability metrics. He fails to meet the threshold consistently. It's not a matter of if, but when. And those close to the decision-making process know the list of replacements is already drawn up. Sim data has been run. Profiles assessed. Transition plans outlined. There's no sentiment in the air anymore. Not among the leadership, not within the garage. Loyalty has been reframed as inertia. Passion is categorized as volatility. Unpredictability is treated as a threat to structural integrity. This isn't just a change in tone, it's an operational transformation. The old Red Bull, brash, chaotic, daring, is being erased. This version is colder, sharper, harder to read. A machine built not to entertain or charm, but to dominate with surgical detachment. And every move Horner makes, whether visible or buried beneath layers of silence, serves one single objective: ensure that failure is not just punished, it's erased from the system before it can replicate. Christian Horner has entered a phase where sentiment is irrelevant and excuses have lost all currency. He's no longer indulging inconsistency, no longer tolerating substandard output masked as personality or promise. His focus is singular, unflinching, and entirely devoid of nostalgia. The ambitions of Red Bull are evolving rapidly, and any element that lags behind that transformation is being marked, dissected, and prepared for disposal. Yuki Tsunoda's name has now become a recurring problem on those internal reports, one that no longer feels like a temporary concern, but a chronic flaw the team can't afford to carry any longer. The atmosphere around Tsunoda has turned cold. Conversations about his future aren't speculative, they're logistical. His performances are no longer being viewed through the lens of development or growth, they're being interpreted as operational liabilities. Every mistake is met with sharper criticism, every lackluster stint draws harsher judgment, and every weekend he fails to meet the minimum expectations chips away at what little faith remains within the leadership. The team isn't just disappointed anymore, they're embarrassed by the contrast between what's demanded and what's being delivered. Data analysts have been feeding damning telemetry into the upper echelons of Red Bull's command chain. Technical inconsistencies, mental lapses, poor tire management, and racecraft that disappears under pressure are no longer private concerns. They're strategic threats to a program that has no tolerance for dead weight as it builds toward a future entirely controlled by its own engineering arm. Red Bull Powertrains isn't coming quietly, it's arriving with a mandate for total control, and there's no room in that future for a driver who crumbles under scrutiny or delivers brilliance only in flashes surrounded by shadows. Behind the scenes, alternatives are being prepared with brutal efficiency. Liam Lawson is no longer considered a backup, he's being treated like a live solution. His private tests have delivered sharper lines, faster acclimatization, and more constructive feedback in fewer sessions. Ayumu Iwasa's profile has re-emerged with new support. Internal chatter has even turned toward exploring external talent, breaking from tradition if necessary to secure a driver who can meet the rising demands. Red Bull is done waiting for breakthroughs that never arrive. Marketing departments have already begun rewriting campaigns to exclude Tsunoda. Meetings once focused on expanding his image across Asia are now spent mitigating the damage of a potential mid-season removal. Japanese sponsors have raised concerns, but they're being stonewalled by a leadership core that's made peace with disruption. Horner, in particular, has no interest in maintaining appearances. He's made it clear that branding cannot come before results. He's not building a commercial darling, he's assembling a war machine. The tension within the garage has become suffocating. Engineers are withholding open criticism but are no longer masking their doubts. Verstappen, though not publicly vocal, has reportedly made it clear that he wants a partner capable of contributing real value to race day development. His patience for meaningless second-car experiments has worn thin. He's chasing another championship. He won't accept technical drag from the other side of the garage, and neither will the data-driven ecosystem that surrounds him. Horner has quietly reclaimed full control of the internal hierarchy. After enduring months of speculation about his own future, he's now tightening every screw inside the team. Personnel changes have already begun. Structural reshuffling is underway. And Tsunoda is a glaring outlier in a system now demanding surgical precision and relentless performance. The leeway he once had is gone, and those who shielded him no longer have the power or willingness to fight on his behalf. Monza is being viewed internally as a final checkpoint. If there's no dramatic shift, if there's no sudden surge of consistency, if the same pattern repeats yet again, he will not travel to the next phase of the calendar as a driver. The paperwork is being readied. Replacements have already been briefed. Engineers have been told to prepare for integration scenarios. There's no denial, no panic, just cold preparation. Red Bull no longer sees Tsunoda as an asset. They see him as an obstacle. One that must be cleared before he compromises the broader mission. The team is not in a developmental phase. They are in a conquest phase. And in this environment, missteps are punishable by erasure. There is no apology coming. No public statement will soften the blow. The process is already in motion. And once Horner pulls the trigger, it won't be a swap, it'll be an execution. He's not chasing redemption, he's hunting vengeance. This isn't about legacy, pride, or some poetic ending. This is about unfinished wars and enemies who celebrated too early. He doesn't want applause, he wants silence, the kind that settles in after domination so absolute, there's nothing left to say. There's no affection in his comeback, no warmth in his return. This isn't nostalgia. This is a calculated invasion, engineered by someone who never forgot, never forgave, and never truly left. He walks into the paddock like it's a battlefield. Every look he gives, every step he takes, it radiates discomfort. He carries no charm, no pretense, only tension that thickens the air around him. He's not here to shake hands. He's here to take heads. The younger ones glance at him and think they understand what he's about. But they've only seen the highlights. They didn't live through the darkness he conquered, the betrayals he endured, the losses that nearly broke him. That pain didn't vanish. It mutated into strategy, into cold, surgical ruthlessness. He doesn't care about fairness or favorites. He's dissecting weaknesses with the precision of a hunter. He hears every lie disguised as analysis, every backhanded compliment masked as respect. He stores it all, not for validation, but to use as kindling. He turns mockery into speed, doubt into aggression, dismissal into pure, undiluted obsession. Every time someone counts him out, they feed the monster they thought they buried. The tools around him may be different, but he doesn't rely on equipment. He becomes the weapon. He adapts, adjusts, attacks. His understanding of the sport is so deep it's unnerving. While others review footage, he reconstructs moments in his mind with perfect clarity. He anticipates before data even confirms. He knows how to exploit hesitation, how to provoke overcorrection, how to create chaos without ever appearing reckless. He's more than fast, he's inevitable. He doesn't operate on emotion, he feeds on cold logic and raw intent. If you hesitate, you're gone. If you miscalculate, you're finished. He doesn't forgive errors. Not from his crew. Not from himself. Every voice on the radio knows the margin for mistakes has vanished. Every eye in the garage watches him, knowing the pressure isn't coming from the outside, it's radiating from him. Not through anger, but through intensity that crushes hesitation and suffocates weakness. He won't ask for second chances. He'll take control before anyone realizes the balance has shifted. He doesn't play for podiums. He aims to demolish. He'll push past limits not because he has to, but because he chooses to. There is no safety in his strategy, no compromise in his execution. He is not impressed by statistics. He is not inspired by rivals. He is not distracted by narratives. He is, at his core, a destroyer, calm, calculating, relentless. He will not warn before he strikes. There will be no build-up, no slow escalation. When the time is right, he'll pounce with ferocity disguised as precision. And when it happens, it won't be loud, it'll be clinical. Terrifying in its efficiency. The kind of performance that leaves Paddock stunned, team principles rattled, and rivals questioning their own conviction. He's not fighting for relevance. He is relevance. Every rumor about his decline, every smirk behind closed doors, he's heard them all, and none will be forgotten. He doesn't let go of insults, he harvests them. He turns them into strategy. He's weaponized the disrespect. And now, with nothing left to lose and everything still to prove, he's about to unleash the kind of assault that doesn't just shift standings, it rewrites fear.